Wow, we're here. We didn't think we'd be here. This wasn't what we thought was going to happen, but, you know, Gina always had a way of surprising us, didn't she? So, for you that don't know me, my name is Lanny. I'm the troublemaking chaplain for Mercy. But I've only been with Mercy for 26 years. And hospice and home health for 24 and a half. So I'm honored to be here to celebrate Gina. But I got to tell you something. We're starting a few minutes early, so there'll probably be more people coming in. But I also want you to know that there'll be a time for you to share some of your memories. But I also want to let you know that we're here to celebrate. We're here to remind each other how much we love Gina and what she means to us. And it's not just us. We're on live stream all over the world. People all over the world are looking in to see and celebrate Gina with us. Join me with an opening prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for Gina. We thank you for her life, her adventuresome spirit, her nursing skills, and the love that she shared with us. Bless us as we come together and to celebrate her and give us comfort and peace. We ask this in your holy name. Amen. My favorite story of Gina was talking to someone that told me that she was precepting them as a nurse. They got with her, they went outside, she said, "Get in, buckle your seatbelt, and sit down and shut up. We're gonna be done by 2." Does that not sound like Gina or what? Gina was born in New Zealand in First Church. Mom Pam later was a training officer and helped train handicapped people how to live their lives. Her dad, Paul, was a trained engineer. She kind of liked that name, Paul, didn't she? She went to Burnside High School and started her nursing training at Tempton Hospital around 1981. So if you want to figure out her age, you do that. She got her BA in psychology at Canterbury University. And she went to a New Year's Eve party at Tempton. And there was this guy that was there. And they just knew. They just knew. They started dating. And in 1982, they started what they call their nursing adventure. A year in the U.S. and Canada, and during that time, their daughter Karma was born. She was already an RN in New Zealand, and in 1992, they came to the United States. First, they went to Los Angeles, spent 2.5 years, and then came to Sacramento, where she worked for UC Davis. She got around. And then around 1994 came to home health. And then, I love this, she would work for about 6 months and then she'd be gone. But then she'd show back up 6 months later. Somebody tell me, and I'm not going to tell you who the name is, but always said, "Gina, you always got a job here." So it was great. Around 1999, they wanted to go back to New Zealand and let their daughter finish high school there, because that's where they were from. And then 2001, they were in LA, and then 6 months later, they were back home in New Zealand. And Paul said, and I loved it, we were chasing the summers. 2005, came back to home health, and it had a huge thing that happened in Gina's life. She became a United States citizen in 2006. Very proud of that. In 2007, they set sail around the world. And they would get places that they would pull in and they would dry dock. They would get the boat out of the water, and Paul would work on the boat for 6 months, and Gina would fly back to Sacramento and she would work with us. And in 2017, they finished the trip around the world. Now you're going to have to bear with me, because I've heard of most of these places, but I can't always pronounce them correctly. They started in Mexico, went to French Polynesia, the Cook Islands, Tonga, New Zealand, Fiji, Vanuatu, Australia, Indonesia, Singapore, Melanesia, Thailand, the Indonesian islands, Sri Lanka, Maldives. I know it, I just can't read it. Mauritius. And then Paul told me about these special little places where they would just pull up to this little reef out in the middle of nowhere, and they would anchor and just stay, and they called it magic places. Little reefs. They went to Reunion, Madagascar, Mozambique, South Africa, St. Helena Islands, Ascension Islands, Trinidad. 2 years they were going through the Caribbean, the ABC Islands, Colombia, and then through the Panama Canal. But they stopped and they thought later, we should have sailed around the Horn. We could have done that. And they could have. Ecuador, French Polynesia, and they completed their round-the-trip tour with the Cook Islands, Tonga, and then New Zealand, and Palmerston Atoll, somewhere like that. All right. See, he knows. One of the most difficult things that they did in their life is they sold the boat in 2017. Does anybody know what the name of the boat was? Solace. The name of the boat was Solace. 44-foot, hileless, seaworthy boat. And it went through a lot. And I loved as I got to sit down and talk to Paul, and he told me about some of the adventures they had. And he said, Lanny, I got scared sometimes. Gina always was that calming person. He said one night that we were in a storm and I was ready to just sell the boat right then and there. She got him through it and they made it. The only thing that she didn't have done on her bucket list was take an RV trip to the top of the world, to the Arctic Circle. Her sister and her hiked the Pacific Coast Trail from Mexico to Canada. And it was great. If you haven't looked at it, it's on YouTube under Kiwi Sisters 2020. 130 episodes. Paul was the support person. And he would keep track with them and talk to them. She loved to play and I'm going to come back to that a little later on. She loved to play the clarinet and play the trombone. She loved to do needlepoint and tapestry, and they were planning on framing them. She could and did knit socks and knitted baby clothes, and loved to do quilting and give them as presents. And I said, well, what did you guys really like to do? And he said, Gina loved to do raw camping. You can imagine what raw camping is like. as they were getting ready to do the Pacific Coast Trail, he and Gina went up into the snow and raw camped up there. Paul had a little Garmin. PCT text is all they could do, 160 characters at a time. And Paul would send them the weather forecast, let them know when a storm was coming, and he could text them for 24 hours. And the InReach satellite would send it back and forth. He loved to meet them and help them on their journey. He met them at Kennedy Meadows. You know where Kennedy Meadows is. He picked them up. You know, they've been on the trail all this time. What did they want? Pizza. And then they hiked up north to Highway 88 and into Highway 50 at the trailhead. And he picked them up there and brought them down to their house. And they got in the car and he said, "You guys stink. You need to take a shower as soon as we get home." And they did, and they loved it. Gina loved family, as we're all family to her. Her mom describes her as the hub of the whole family. And here we think of Thanksgiving as being when we gather as family. In New Zealand, it's Christmas. And Gina always made sure she was there for that Christmas dinner. They were always ready to leave. They had the charts. And they could have gone south through the Magellan Straits and could have gone through the bottom or around the Horn of South Africa. But they just didn't. But they wish they would have. They wanted to go to Easter Island, and then they wanted to do the Pacific Rim sailing. But COVID happened, and that stopped it. So it's been an amazing journey. And as we all know, Gina was an amazing woman, and Paul is an amazing man. And I'm going to let him come and say the words that he wants to say about Gina at this time. Paul?
I'm not used to this. Such a large crowd. Okay. Well, hello everybody and welcome. Such a large crowd. I didn't realize she had so many friends. So many friends. I want to thank you all for coming today and just celebrate Gina's life. And I also want to acknowledge that there are many overseas, as Lenny mentioned, viewing today, both family and friends, and those who cannot make it. I thank them for their presence have tuned in on the live feed. Where's the camera? Anyhow, so you all know my name is Paul, so I've been Gina's husband for 44 years. And I apologise in advance if I can't get through this. This is so very hard. The hardest thing I've done in my life. And it's a day I've dreaded for quite some time. For Gina and I talked about death and what each other thought about it. After all, we were both nurses. And as the saying goes, we've seen a thing or two. But you know, this was totally unexpected. A tragedy and a senseless loss. And perhaps what I'm going to call a SUDS, S-U-D-S. And let me explain. I called Gina SUDS in a game we used to play. It's an online game. And the meaning for me was the froth on the top of beer. A good beer has a good head, so they say, and Gina had a good head. Clear and focused. Appropriate for a strategy game, She didn't play often, but by God, when we teamed up, we were feared. It was a war game, war strategy game, and people used to send us hate mail. And when you get hate mail, you know you're playing the game well. However, I recently looked up the meaning of SUDS, and for most of us, we know it as the soap SUDS. But I never thought of the acronym, which I also came across, which was for Sudden Unexplained Death Syndrome, and I found that very ironic. In this case, we don't think it's unexplained, and we believe it was heat stroke that took her that day. When I was notified of the news, I found it hard to get my head around it. How can somebody walk the whole of the PCT, bottom to top, Mexico to Canada, and die the next year on a short day hike? When she mentioned she was going for a hike on that day, I had no concern for her. It was a simple hike which we have done together many times. She was fit and healthy, but that fateful day was at 109 degrees midday, and I suspect out at Folsom it was probably 112. Heat stroke's such an insidious condition and often comes without any warning signs. But she planned well for that walk that day with water. Struggled with God over the years. Things don't always work out as you might expect, and the world is in such a troubled time. And in death, I know we don't get to pick the short straw. But I believe in my heart God needed a new hero in heaven that day. He was merciful, and I was convinced Gina felt neither pain or sorrow. I know she was happy, doing the things she loved doing. I believe she had joy in her heart that day. The last photo of her from a phone was on that walk, and she had a big smile on her face. Gina and I planned our adventures together. She loved the adventures. From the journey to the States in 1992 to make a new life, to the sailing, and to walking the Pacific Crest Trail. And we had so many more plans for our retirement. We also had so many stories to tell. Ken, who is here with us today, made me promise to not stop telling the stories. So I have a couple to tell here, and from these you can see how she became my rock. For me, who was Gina? I can tell you, she was my lovely and loving wife. Gina was the blood in my veins, the light in my fire, and the electricity that drove me. And finally, the rock that anchored me and kept me safe. I met Gina at a New Year's party for nurses. She was in her teens and we both were in our nurse training at that time. In those days in New Zealand, nurse training was all done in a hospital setting. So over the following years, she became my personal ski instructor, a wife and a mother. Our daughter was born in 1982 in Canada when we were on one of our first adventures. It was during that adventure she learned to skydive. And while not doing many, we did actually get to skydive together. I guess not all the things your partner does will be taken up. After all, I had no interest in quilting, which she was an avid fan of. Gina made many quilts over the years. She was very gifted with the sewing, and beautiful quilts adorn our house and others. for she made gifts of them from time to time. But not only was she gifted at quilting, she did needlework or cross-stitch, and they were exquisite. She knitted as well. Just before I went east, we took the RV out. In the evening after dinner in the RV, she would sit back in that big leather recliner chairs, knitting away, while we watched movies together. She was so happy. Gina commented as she sipped on a glass of wine, "This is the life." I replied back, "Yes, it is, and not long now before we do this full time." She was so happy, for the last remaining thing to do on a bucket list was to take that RV up to the Arctic Circle. Sadly, that's not to be. A new adventure started in 1992 when we came to the US as nurses. We loved it, we travelled, we experienced so much. She was always keen to do the next adventure with me, but not so with the boat. In 1999, we sold our house here in Folsom and returned to New Zealand for a few years. There we built a house together. It was while selling the house here in Folsom I suggested we use the money and buy a yacht and sail back to New Zealand. She said, "No way, ain't going to happen." So the thought of sailing slipped from my mind. But in 2003, we were in San Francisco on a nursing contract. And she asked me if I could take her sailing, so I did. And it turned out to be one of those most beautiful days and lovely sail that only occasionally happens in San Francisco. At the end of the contract, we were meant to go to Egypt. We had made a thing out of going to different places after the end of our contracts. But things were just not working out. So she said, "Take me home to New Zealand and buy me a yacht instead." And that's what I did. Gina, at the start of sailing, was very scared. Even a 5-degree heel on the boat seemed too much for her. And often she would ask me to take sailing. So with that, it was time to take her on a sailing course. I went with her to both help and give her confidence. That course was just 6 weeks, but we both had a blast. The highlight was the firefighting and wearing full breathing apparatus equipment just like the firefighters do. We paired up, teamed up, and had to go into a building and put out a couple of fires and rescue a simulated body. Bag of straw, really. I remember the smoke being so thick we couldn't see, and we had to sweep the areas twice to find that hidden body. But what fun we had. We both passed the Royal Yachting Association's Yachtmaster course. She was so proud of her achievement, and I was happy for her. We continued to sail our yacht in New Zealand for a few years. We worked on re-equipping her, but we soon realised this was not the boat to sail around the world in. So we purchased a yacht called Solace. We purchased it from Ken and Michelle, who are with us here today. For Ken and Michelle became wonderful friends and followed us on our adventures. Thank you, Ken, for a lovely boat that kept us safe. Gina loved that boat, and we cried when she left it. We did eventually leave on our journey to sail around the world in 2007. During those 10 years, Gina saved my life 3 times. The first time was in French Polynesia, and I developed congestive heart failure. We didn't know it at the time, but the wonderful fruit they have in French Polynesia was affecting my drugs I was on for my heart condition. That fruit, by the way, is called pamplemousse, and it's very much like a very large grapefruit. Once I woke up in the morning and I was blown up like a doughboy. My legs were twice the size, my belly was out here somewhere. We both knew what I had. After all, we were both nurses and we'd seen a thing or two. We debated for a while what to do about it, and we both agreed to get myself back to New Zealand as quickly as possible. We sailed that night. Actually, Gina sailed because I was in too much pain and couldn't do anything. We sailed to the haul-out yard, and with friends, Gina decommissioned the boat for storage. While she sailed, Gina used the Iridium phone to call doctors, family and airlines to book tickets. And you know, a satellite phone at sea is a very handy thing to have. So we got to New Zealand. By that stage I was having to be pushed around by a wheelchair. I couldn't even walk because of the pain. But I got admitted to hospital and fixed up. However, the sailing season was closing for the Pacific, and we thought it best to go back to the boat on the next sailing season. So like a trooper, she came back to the States to work while I stayed in New Zealand to continue to get well. We never did like being separated, but we both did it, knowing it was for our journey, and she just worked so hard. In 2009, we went back to the boat to continue the journey. However, the season is only 6 months before cyclone season starts, and we decided to drop down to New Zealand from Tonga to get out of the cyclone area. Tonga to New Zealand is about a 9-day sail. Getting a good weather window for 9 days is hard to get. During the passage is when we had our first big storm. Waves as high as a 2-story building. Things started to break on the boat, and I was very scared. I had to go outside to fix down a large wire cable that had broken. It was whipping around violently, and our mast was no longer as secure as it could be. Even while clipped to the safety line, I was on hands and knees. Gina commented as I climbed out of the cockpit, "Don't fall overboard, I won't be able to come and get you." I just replied, "I know." But she kept me calm and focused. She seemed to face this huge hurdle in her stride and gave me strength and confidence to get things done. To get things done. We did make it back to New Zealand. The storm passed and the seams became smooth, and we motored the last 250 miles because we could not sail. We got into port. We were both exhausted, but very pleased to get there. The next time Gina saved my life was on a dive we were both doing in Indonesia. It was just off the island where they have the Komodo dragons. And at 40 feet I noticed I had breathing difficulties. I stopped at a coral head for a short period, but with no improvement decided to make an emergency ascent. Gina and the dive master followed me up. At the surface I couldn't breathe or talk. They quickly helped me into a little dive boat that fortuitously was right there. I can't remember much after that, but was told by Gina they got me back to my larger dive boat and did CPR for about 7 minutes. Gina did the respirations because I had a lot of, call it junk, coming up out of the mouth. And 2 Europeans, fortunately, were alternating on the chest compressions. They wanted to stop after about 3 minutes. They all thought I was dead, but Gina insisted that they keep going, and so here I am today. The final time Gina saved my life was when we were in Borneo. We were up a river and going to see the orangutans. There's a big reserve there, and you can go up the rivers and see the orangutans. just stop here for a second, and it just reminds me of when we were up there seeing these orangutans. You walk along these wooden pathways so you don't wander off into the forest. One orangutan came up to Gina and pulled a pocket out, looked in it, went over the other side, pulled the pocket out, saw something and grabbed her lippy out of there. Gina says, "Give that back," and held her hand out, and guess what? The orangutan put it back in her hand. So anyhow, while we were waiting for the tour, I got hungry, and we ate at what I call a small hole-in-the-wall calf. And while I was eating, I choked on a piece of meat. She had to do the Heimlich maneuver several times. And you know she was a little lady. And so after several times, I was just at that stage of passing out and falling to the ground when a final heave from Gina brought up that offending piece of meat. She was so angry at me. So angry. She said that if I ever do anything like that again, she would sell the boat wherever we were and go home. What saddens me, she got to save my life 3 times, and I was not there to save hers. Gina had picked up the clarinet in recent times, and I was becoming very proficient. She was starting to learn a new song, and you might have heard it. There's different versions of it out there, and I thought the music might be playing today, but it doesn't appear to be there. And the song is called "One Day at a Time," and she liked that song. I would like to read just a few lines of that song because I think it does relate to her, and in a small way with my struggles today. I'm sorry I can't sing it, but you would be sorry if I did. And so it goes. I'm only human. I am just a woman. Help me believe in what I could be and all that I am. Show me the stairway I have to climb. Lord, for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time. Give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Yesterday's gone, and tomorrow will never be mine. During our time together, Gina and I were convinced that there were guardian angels looking after us. So many things that happened to us that we could only explain by feeling our guardian angel had looked out for us. I don't know why our guardian angel could not have done one more thing for us that day. But I am confident God needed a new hero, perhaps a new guardian angel, and Gina was chosen that day. My daughter Karma suggested Gina is on a new PCT adventure, and it's called A Peaceful Cosmic Trail. And she's traded her boots in for wings. May we all feel a presence when the cool wind brushes across our faces and the stars shine. Love is like the wind. You can't see it, but you can feel it. And a star does not compete with other stars around it. It just shines. Gina just shined. I would like to lead you in these words of prayer. Some of these words you might recognize from Scripture. Lord, there is a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to say goodbye. Lord, source of all life and healing, be with me in this time of physical, emotional, and spiritual need. Help me cope with the challenges I am facing. Comfort and encourage those who love and care, and whose lives have been unsettled and disrupted by illness. I pray for patience and understanding. I pray for strength and wisdom. I pray for healing and inner peace. And Lord, if Gina is your new guardian angel, I pray she be allowed to continue her work of caring and comfort. May she look over her family and friends and bring comfort to them. Amen. Dearest Gina, when I saw your light shine, I knew I was home. Now we're going on a new adventure. Now we're going home with all your friends and family around you. If we make it or don't, we won't be alone. We will all miss you, dear. Be all you can be, you said. You excelled. I hope I can too. I thank you for the life we have lived together. Rest in peace. Thank you again for your support, everybody.
Anna is now going to come and she's going to share some words from Karma.
Hello, everybody. Most of you know me.
Talk right into that thing, or they
Okay.
won't even hear you in New Zealand.
As many as you know, I'm Anna, one of Gina's friends, and she was my mentor. And Karma, I'm not gonna do as best just job as you did. So this speech is directed to Karma's mom, as she believes Gina's soul is still here and she can still listen. Mom, you left a hole in my heart. You were taken away from me way too soon, and this is a sensation I have never felt or knew existed. It hurts so fucking much. I know you will sing, wash your mouth with soap or watch out your language, but now I'm frustrated, angry, gutted, shocked, devastated, heartbroken. Words cannot describe. It is just so hard, Mom, because we were so close. I keep asking why. The only answer I can come up with is because you were so bloody determined at all time. But I have always admired that about you, and felt that you passed that on to me among many other admirable attributes and quirks. Shame I did not get your intelligence through is questionable given the circumstances of passing, LOL. Jokes aside, I think the last and hardest lesson you are teaching me in life is resilience and the importance of living life at its fullest with a smile on your dial, as you used to say. You told me the other week when I lost yet another M-baby that I'm more resilient, and I think I am. I don't feel like I am. I guess you have given me ultimate test now. So I'm going to do my best and put a big girl panties on, as you would say, and reminiscent about giving thanks to you for a bit. Feel me, Mom. Hear me, Mom. I'm grateful for so many extracurricular activities I got to do as a child, so many fun adventures we got to enjoy as a family. The gym competition you took me to and cheered me on, making cookies or simply just eating eggs mixed with sugar and travel around the world. The cuddles, the Dr. Google moments, my personal nurse. You and Dad made so many sacrifices for me to have the best upbringing ever, and I appreciate it so much. Except for the time when you threw my stuff out the second-story window because of an untidy room, or the times you made me eat lunch while I didn't finish for dinner. LOL. I may have been a bit of a wild child once upon a time, but you taught me a lot, and I have always aimed to be an apple of your eye. I feel like I am finally I'm feeling like I'm living up to my name that I'm so grateful you both gave me, and now I will continue to do so by building up my yoga business and passing on good karma to all my clients, and being my best self. I'm grateful you showed me all of the baggies for yoga clients and left me a video instructions how to make them myself, but gosh, dang it. Now I'm really going to have to learn how to sew. The biggest thing I'm grateful for are the most recent memories that I prayed would stick with me forever. I'm grateful we got to walk along Kaikoura Beach while chatting to you on a video for ages about this and that, as we were chatting a helicopter landed in front of me. I told you, I wonder if I could hitch a ride. As you said, and have always said, you never know until you ask. So you got to listen to my best bargaining skills ever, convincing the pilot to take me up for only $100. You said, go for it. I'll shout for you your birthday present. Then flying high like you are now, I got to share my views on top Mountain Fife via video chat with you. It was so special. As I said to you at time, and like you always said to me, I was tickled pink. At least you got in one last birthday present. You said, oh, good. I don't have to send you a parcel in the mail now, LOL. I'm grateful I got to teach you yoga online on Friday before you passed. During the class, apart from your lack of flexibility, I saw so much of me in you, as I told you that day. So grateful I spoke to you on the phone before that fateful day, because our last word to each other were, I love you. With you saying it first, because I do love you so very much, and this is why it hurts so goddamn much. It is hard to believe and bear. I'm sad to tell you, Craig and I, last and baby, is now resting with you somewhere, but I am determined ever more now to bring a grandchild of yours into the world. You always said where there is a will, there is a way. Remember, we're talking about progesterone levels. Well, this time round, they were excellent. They had my body also set it out, so all I needed is a bit of money and a good embryo. Feel free to message me the winning lotto numbers. Seriously. Seriously, please help me through the next IVS rounds. If you could do one last thing for me, help me getting that right wee embryo so I can have the opportunity to be doting, caring, and loving mother you were to me. Then you will have somebody else you can live vicariously through on earth. Her middle name will be Gina. You better come and see me in a yoga studio. But before you do, be by Dad for a few weeks. He needs you and wants to hear your voice. If you try hard enough, you can communicate to him. Then see Granddad, and Grandma. They miss you dearly. And of course, all of other loving family and friends. Gosh, so many love you. Then come by my studio. Follow the ley lines that run across the earth. One runs through the studio, and please make yourself physically present. I'll be back full-time next week. You know I have seen spirit, so I will be able to see you too. Feel free to talk to me too. It does take a lot of energy, but you were always full of beans, so I know anyone can do it, you can. Then explore the universe, heaven, or whatever may exist when we pass, and doing what you do best, going on an adventure, but please stop by once in while making yourself known. And I promise I will be right by Dad's side when he gets home, making sure he takes his pills and be there to love him and share good times and stories. And of course, care for and help your parents out as much as they let me. I'm sorry, Mom, that this happened to you and all of us. I know you'll be kicking yourself, but know I love you more than words can describe. You are and you will always be my world, but I will miss you so much, Mom. I really don't know how I will get through this. I hope the incredible strength you have will eventually shine through me. My thoughts to you for now is I'm proud of all of your accomplishments, including the amazing feat of accomplishments for PCT, Pacific Crest Trail, but I guess it's your time to enjoy another PCT, the peaceful Cosmic Trail. Love your own and one and only daughter, me. Thank you. Bye, Gina.
Gina's sister's now going to come and share some thoughts.
Hi, I'm not the one that did the Pacific Crest, you can see that. I'm the youngest daughter, so it's taken a lot to me to get here today. I flew from Holland, and I'd like to thank my husband, my family, my friends who wrote to the ambassadors, the General Consulate, and finally for the US government for allowing me to be here, because the rest of my family could not during this very terrible time during COVID. So I thank you all. I also thank Anna, who had the terrible job of having to tell our family about our loss, about Jama for giving the support, and to Julie and Rob, who were there for Paul when he was told about the sad news for my family. I have been given the youngest, they always get picked on, so now I get to tell everybody else's story in my family. So Mum and Dad, I know you can see me, and I know how much this is hurting you. Their words to everybody here and to the rest of my family are, we are thankful for Kim's efforts to be with you, Gina, and to give Paul family support. Gina, you're very lucky to have such a caring family scattered around the world, and you will be greatly missed. Our thoughts and love are with you, Paul. Thanks, Mum and Dad. To Penny. Gina was a fun sister, and with only 18 months between us, we moved through the stages of life hand in hand. Walking the 2 miles to Westburn Primary School when she was 5, biking miles around Christchurch to various activities like ice skating as children, skiing, high school tramping, hiking for the Americans, and hiking trips around New Zealand, and then the Pacific Trail last year. This was her mission. 20 years ago, when she was out with Paul on a hike, she saw a sign, and not knowing what it is, went home, researched it, and found out about the 2,600-mile-long PCT. She committed herself to the dream, and 3 years later, with Paul, started the planning. Before our journey, she prepared to perfection, and on the trails always had determination and purposefulness. When I wanted to stop, she kept telling me that we were there to finish. She was the number one sister, so I would have to keep walking. No offence, okay, I know it was number 3. It was a real achievement for us both. and it wasn't supposed to be the last. It is with great sadness that I say farewell to my little sister. She had so many wonderful qualities that I admired and will be missed by Charles, Emily, and me. Now, I think I've probably written around about 4 speeches before, and it wasn't until I was driving to the airport on Tuesday at 5 o'clock in the morning that I heard my favourite Garth Brooks song on the radio. And I would just like to, I'm not going to sing you and pain you with that, but I would like just to read you a couple of verses that I really thought that there was a reason this song was playing. For me, this was about Gina. You know, a dream is like a river, ever changing as it flows, and a dream is just a vessel that must follow where it goes. Trying to learn from what's behind you and never knowing what's in store makes each day a constant battle, just to stay between the shores. I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry. Like a bird upon the wind, these waters are my sky. I'll never reach my destination if I never try. And like you all know her, she was determined and she always tried to reach her dreams, and she did. She just had too many of them. Gina lived her dreams. She sailed many waters. Gina was all about caring about her family and her friends. I decided to look up the definition of family, and this is what I found. A group of one or more parents and their children living together as a unit. And Dad, you know what I mean about the unit. You always said about your unit. And Gina created also her own unit. But she also went beyond that. Her heart was the size of Texas, and not only did she take care of her direct family, but I know she touched everybody here. You were her family as well, and we are all incredibly lucky and richer because of that. Some people come into our lives and leave, and others leave footprints forever in our heart, and that is our Gina. The strength of the Gooch unit is solely down to our incredible parents who taught their girls to make the most of our life. Be independent, and my favourite, never depend on a man for money. Instead, follow your dreams, and like our parents, marry for love. Gina loved all of us very much. But Paul, you should know, you were the love of her life, and you always will be. I know she would want you to keep living for Karma and the family, and as I have heard my dad say so much, you've still got a few good years in you yet. I will leave you with one last saying that our parents taught us to live by, and especially appropriate, I think, in these precarious times we now live in. Life is no dress rehearsal. Your life is right here, right now. And every day is a gift. So like Gina, live your life well and don't sweat the small stuff. She didn't. Gina will always be a footprint in my heart. Thank you.
All right, we're running long, but if there's anybody that wants to come and just say a few brief words, now's the time to do it. Because we're live streaming, you do have to come up here and you do have to talk into the microphone. So who's going to be first? All right. But you're so quiet and shy.
Hi, I'm Marcia, and I was one of the schedulers at Mercy Home Health, and Gina and I had a lot of fun together. I could make her life miserable if I chose to or not. But one of the things I did at Mercy Home Health was collect thimbles. When all my coworkers would travel, I would ask them to bring me thimbles. So my house looks like I've been all over the world. I've been nowhere, but I have a bunch of thimbles. And after their round the world trip, she came to me with a big baggie full of thimbles. And we couldn't read half the names, and she didn't know half the names, and some of the thimbles didn't have any names. And it didn't matter, and they were all from her, and I really cherish them. And the other memory I cherish of her is when she would roll her eyes at me when I would eat or drink something she felt I shouldn't be eating or drinking. And those are my greatest memories of Gina, and I miss her a lot. Mm-hmm.
Who's next? I warn you, I'm not a man that waits very long. Hey, I got somebody coming. You're next.
I'm really short.
Way down.
I'm one of the gymnast friends. My name is Christy. I went by Teddy when I was a gymnast, and I wanted to come up here because Karma and I were best friends. Hi, Paul. When they came over to the States and moved to Sacramento, and I was thinking about Gina, and the things that stand out the most to me were the different foods she introduced me to, like Vegemite.
Oh, yeah.
It looked like chocolate. It didn't taste like it. Soft-boiled eggs in the little pedestal. But Paul and Gina kind of took me as part of their family, just like my parents took Karma as part of our family. And so Karma, I know you can see me on the video, so I wanted to come up and say hi as well, because we haven't seen each other since, it's probably been 20 years. But I wanted to make sure to come and pay my respects as well, and just, I'm so sorry for your loss. And Gina is a very special part of my memory of you guys, so thank you.
Don't just sit back down. If you get up, we're going to make you come.
It's going to be quick. So I was Gina's supervisor for the last 3 years, and she was the best. She was the best nurse, I can honestly say. And she would sign her emails cheers. So I just really love that. So I just want to say cheers to you, Gina. We all miss you at Mercy Home Health.
Anybody else? I didn't mean that to sound so strong and loud. I'm sorry. Gina has a new role as guardian angels. And she's not only guardian angel over Paul and her family, but I suspect, knowing Gina, she's going to be after us too. Paul and the family has asked me to thank you for being here and for the expressions of your love and appreciation. And he has said something that really sticks in my ears. He says, Gina has traded her hiking boots in for wings. I will remember that, Paul. If you would like to make a donation in Gina's name, you're welcome to do that, but it's not required. But it is required that before you leave out of here, there's a book in back that you have to sign, because they want to know you're here. Join me in the closing prayer. Gracious God, we thank you for Gina, for the light in her eyes and the love of her heart, and the laughs that she gave us and the joy that we share together as coworkers and friends and family and people who love each other. Bless us. Be with us. Help us walk this journey together. And we ask this in your holy name. Amen. Again, thank you for being here. You're dismissed. God bless you. That also includes around the world. You're welcome. About? Oh, yes. Yes, I sent you a text back. I don't have anybody that comes out at this point, but there's salvation in it and goodness. It can always be. But keep your ear to the ground. Sometimes people just come out.
Okay, well, of course, I got a lot of stuff going on with wood. Things like spices and herbs and all those things that Gina used to have in the kitchen. I didn't feel that will
Do much with it, yes.
seems a shame to throw them away.
Here's some of Jesus' stuff.
Yeah, well, already have done that.
Continue. You're doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you for today. It was lovely.
You on heels?
It was Gina. Moving things around like she did.
You stay in touch with me. You have my phone number. No, I want you to call me. We have lunch or dinner together. Okay? Stay in touch. No matter where you are.
walk what, half a mile to work? I mean, who's going to drive half a
She